On June 23, 2021, Daniel Robinson, a 24-year-old field geologist, left his job site near Sun Valley Parkway and Cactus Road in Buckeye, Arizona, at around 9:15 a.m. He drove away in his 2017 Jeep Renegade, heading west into the desert. Later that day, when no one heard from him, he was reported missing. Born without the lower part of his right arm, he still took part in athletics, and after earning a geology degree in 2017, moved to Arizona for work. There, he found a position as a hydrogeologist with Matrix New World. On July 19, 2021, a rancher discovered Daniel's Jeep rolled onto its side in a remote ravine. The airbags had deployed, and the seatbelt showed signs of use. Inside the vehicle were Daniel's cell phone, wallet, keys, and even his clothes. Investigators combed the area for clues, and a human skull found nearby raised hopes of a lead. Curiously, testing soon showed it was not Daniel's, and no other remains were found at that time. The Buckeye Police Department and other agencies used drones, cadaver dogs, and helicopters, covering over 70 square miles in their search. Daniel's family hired a private investigator who believed the scene might have been staged. The investigator noted that the Jeep's ignition had been turned over dozens of times after the airbags deployed, and that an unexplained extra 11 miles were recorded on the odometer. He also found red paint transferred onto Daniel's vehicle, suggesting it had struck another car before ending up in the ravine. A rancher said he had been near that spot 2 days before the Jeep was found, and had not seen it then. Back in Tempe, Daniel's apartment was either disturbed or completely ransacked, depending on the source. What is clear is that someone went through his closet and accessed his computer. Forensic analysis showed strange activity, suggesting someone had been browsing his search history without a clear purpose. Police learned Daniel had been texting with a woman he met while making deliveries for Instacart. According to the woman, he visited her home unannounced more than once, making her feel both extremely uncomfortable and threatened. I wasn't able to find any information about whether this woman made any police complaints about this behavior prior to Daniel's disappearance. Adding to the mystery, in November 2021, a second set of remains was found, and again testing showed they did not belong to Daniel. The speculation around Daniel's disappearance has been considerable. One theory revolves around the possibility of a tragic accident, where Daniel may have got into an accident, suffered a head injury, become disoriented, and perished due to exposure. Another theory centers on foul play by an unknown party, triggered by events either at the remote job site or in the days leading up to Daniel's disappearance. According to some, the anomalies with the Jeep's ignition, the presence of red paint suggesting a collision, and a suspiciously staged crash scene all hint at an orchestrated cover-up. Under this scenario, someone might have harmed Daniel and then accessed his apartment, though the reasoning for doing all this is a mystery. A third angle involves the possibility of a voluntary disappearance, potentially due to personal struggles or emotional distress. The odd activity in his apartment and on his computer could represent a hastily executed plan to leave his old life behind. Daniel Robinson remains missing, and the Buckeye PD is still investigating the matter. If you have any information regarding the case, please contact them. The story of the Isdal Woman begins on a cold November afternoon in 1970 when a man and his 2 daughters were hiking in Isdalen, a rugged valley with a reputation for past hiking accidents. They stumbled upon something horrifying: the charred remains of a woman lying between large rocks. The body was found on November 29, 1970, and local police were quickly called to the scene. The initial examination suggested she had been dead for a few days. Her clothes had their labels removed, and any personal belongings that might have identified her were systematically stripped of distinguishing marks. Authorities soon realized that the woman had ingested a large amount of sleeping pills and had suffered burns on her body. However, they weren't able to determine if she caused these injuries and conditions, or if it was done by someone else. The police began a meticulous investigation, but every lead seemed to provoke more confusion. A few days after the discovery, 2 suitcases were linked to the Isdal Woman and recovered from a luggage storage facility at the Bergen railway station. Inside these cases, investigators found a strange assortment of items: wigs, clothing with all labels removed, and a pair of glasses. Crucially, they also found a coded note that appeared to reference the places she had traveled. Also puzzling was the fact that the woman had used multiple passports under different names, all false, during her stay in Norway. The attempt to determine her true identity through traditional means, such as fingerprint comparisons, failed to yield any matches in international databases. The Norwegian police eventually concluded that the Isdal woman's death might have been a self-deletion, pointing to the overdose and the somewhat bizarre nature of her preparedness. Yet many have disputed this conclusion over the years. Why would a woman traveling under multiple aliases remove the labels from her clothing and carry wigs? Why encode notes about her journey if she had no reason to hide her movements? And who was she meeting, if anyone, in the remote valley where her body was found? These questions have fueled speculation that she may have been involved in the clandestine world of espionage. The Cold War was still in full swing at the time of her death, and Bergen, a strategic point along Norway's coast, was not immune to international intrigue. One theory suggests that the Isdal woman was a spy, potentially working for a Warsaw Pact country on a mission to observe NATO maneuvers. This theory attempts to explain her multiple identities, her coded travel note, and her generally suspicious behavior. If she was indeed a spy, it's possible that her death was meant to ensure her permanent silence. Alternatively, it's possible that her mission failed, or she felt the pressure of imminent capture and chose to go out on her own. None of these espionage theories, however, have been proven, and critics argue that the spy narrative is largely circumstantial and based on inference rather than direct evidence. Another theory suggests she might have been involved in criminal activities, such as smuggling or dealing in stolen goods. People have pointed out that the lack of identification marks on her belongings and the multiple passports might indicate a life lived on the fringes of legality. In recent decades, scientific advancements have spurred new attempts to solve the mystery. The Norwegian police and forensic experts have re-examined the case using modern DNA analysis, isotope testing, and advanced facial reconstructions. Isotope analysis of her teeth indicated that she might have grown up in or near the border regions between France and Germany, or possibly somewhere in Central Europe. Robert William Fisher, born on April 13, 1961, is a fugitive wanted for the slayings of his wife and 2 children, followed by the arson of their Scottsdale, Arizona home in April 2001. Despite extensive manhunts and being on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list for nearly 2 decades, Fisher's whereabouts remain unknown. Fisher served in the U.S. Navy and later worked as a firefighter and in the medical field. In 1987, he married Mary Cooper, and the couple had 2 children, Bobby and Brittany. Their domestic life was reportedly troubled, with friends noting Fisher's controlling behavior and marital discord. In 1998, Fisher admitted to an extramarital affair, which strained the marriage further. Mary reportedly considered divorce, a prospect that deeply unsettled Fisher due to his own parents' divorce during his childhood. On April 10, 2001, the Fisher family home exploded in a massive fire. Firefighters responding to the scene discovered the bodies of Mary, 38, and their 2 children, 12-year-old Brittany and 10-year-old Bobby in their beds. Autopsies revealed that all three had been slain prior to the fire starting. Investigators determined that the fire was deliberately set using an accelerant and a severed gas line, likely ignited by a candle to delay the explosion. Robert was immediately identified as the primary suspect. He was last seen on an ATM surveillance camera on April 9, 2001, withdrawing $280. 10 days after the murders, Mary's Toyota 4Runner was found in a remote area of the Tonto National Forest near Payson, Arizona. The family's dog, Blue, was found nearby, but there was no trace of Fisher. Despite extensive searches, including cave systems and surrounding wilderness, no definitive evidence of Fisher's whereabouts was uncovered. Several theories have emerged regarding Fisher's fate in the years that followed. Some investigators believe Fisher may have deleted himself from existence in the forested areas near where his vehicle was found. Fisher is often speculated to possess survivalist skills, a theory supported by his background and interests. Fisher served in the U.S. Navy, where he would have received training in basic survival techniques, discipline, and adaptability. Additionally, he was an avid outdoorsman who reportedly enjoyed hunting, fishing, and hiking in rugged terrains, particularly in Arizona's wilderness. His familiarity with the Tonto National Forest, near where the abandoned vehicle was discovered, suggests he might have chosen the area deliberately, knowing its landscape could hinder the search. Fisher's ability to remain undetected for over 2 decades has fueled speculation that he may be leveraging these capabilities to live off-grid. That said, there's no direct evidence nor even strong circumstantial evidence confirming that he has survived in the wilderness. Another theory suggests Fisher may have had help from friends or acquaintances, enabling him to evade capture. Under this theory, one of these friends may have helped him acquire a new identity or even flee the country. If he stayed in the country and isn't living off the grid, some have speculated that he may be living on the outskirts of life as a drifter doing odd jobs. However, no concrete evidence supports this, and those close to him have consistently denied any involvement. That said, there have been reports of a man resembling Fisher in Guatemala who may have married a woman there, though this doesn't appear to have been fully investigated as yet. In November 2021, after 20 years, Fisher was removed from the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list, though he remains a wanted fugitive. The decision was based on the duration of his inclusion and the lack of new information leading to his capture. If you have any information regarding Robert Fisher, please report it to the FBI. Hey everyone, it's your boy Jimmy here with a quick reminder to like, subscribe, and share the video. On January 13, 2018, residents and visitors in Hawaii experienced a harrowing 38 minutes after receiving an emergency alert warning of an incoming ballistic missile. The message, which appeared on smartphones statewide, read, "Ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill." The official story behind this event is deceptively simple. The alert was a false alarm, triggered inadvertently during a routine internal test at the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency. An employee mistakenly selected the live alert option instead of the test, sending the terrifying message across the state. Despite immediate recognition of the error, it took 38 minutes to issue a correction, during which widespread panic ensued. The incident occurred amid heightened tensions between the United States and North Korea, with the latter conducting missile tests and making aggressive statements. This context amplified the fear and confusion caused by the false alert, as many believed a missile attack was plausible. In the aftermath, several conspiracy theories emerged. Some speculated that the alert was not accidental, but a deliberate psychological experiment by the government to gauge public reaction to a missile threat. Others suggested it was a cover-up for a real missile intercepted by defense systems. The ivory-billed woodpecker once inhabited the old-growth forests of the southeastern United States, where it fed on delicious beetle larvae lurking beneath the bark of dead and dying trees. I mean delicious if you're an IBW, of course. And yeah, I'm calling them IBWs from now on. And yeah, there's timestamps if you don't want to be subjected to that. Historically, it was one of the largest woodpeckers in North America, second only to the imperial woodpecker of Mexico. Unfortunately, the IBW's numbers began to dwindle during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, mostly due to rampant deforestation and logging that stripped away their old-growth habitats. By the early mid-20th century, the species had become incredibly rare and confirmed sightings nearly vanished. The last widely accepted photographic records came from the Singer Tract in Louisiana during the late 1930s and early 1940s. By the late 20th century, most ornithologists agreed that the IBW was likely extinct, though some individual reports persisted. Various unverified sightings popped up in Florida, Louisiana, and elsewhere, fueling occasional newspaper headlines and speculation among bird enthusiasts and conservationists. A pivotal moment came in 2004 when members of the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and other researchers reported a possible sighting in the Big Woods area of eastern Arkansas. The announcement sparked international excitement and led to significant funding and publicity for large-scale searches. However, subsequent evidence, based primarily on inconclusive video footage and fleeting visual encounters, failed to meet the rigorous standards needed for undeniable verification. While these efforts strengthened conservation measures in the region, the absence of irrefutable documentation meant that many scientists remained skeptical. Some critics argued that the search's resources might have been better spent protecting currently confirmed endangered species. Others speculated that the quote-unquote IBW sighting was actually cooked up by conservationists who wanted to strengthen conservation efforts in the area in general. Despite occasional unverified sightings, the bird is now widely classified as either critically endangered or presumed extinct. The Kensington Runestone is a controversial artifact that was allegedly discovered by a Swedish immigrant, Olof Öhman, in 1898 on his farm near Kensington, Minnesota. It's a slab of stone about 30 inches high, 16 inches wide, and 6 inches thick, inscribed with runes that some have claimed date back to the 14th century. The stone's inscription, if authentic, would suggest that Norse explorers reached what is now the Midwestern United States long before Columbus. The stone's authenticity has been hotly debated for more than a century, and it's still not widely accepted among professional archaeologists or historians. At first glance, the inscription on the Kensington Runestone seems to tell a story of a group of Norse explorers. These intrepid Norsemen, in 1362, reached the interior of North America, lost a number of their men, and left the stone as a memorial. According to this narrative, these explorers were part of a larger expedition that may have ventured deep into the continent via inland waterways. This would be a remarkable piece of evidence for pre-Columbian exploration of the region, lending support to the idea that Vikings navigated far beyond known coastal areas. Yet from the very moment it was brought to public attention, skepticism surrounded its origin, style, and language. The runic inscription, as translated, reads something like a casualty record combined with directions and a date. If we accept it at face value, it indicates that a group of 30 explorers made their way deep into the continent, only to face disaster. However, experts have long questioned the grammar, spelling, and word choices seen in the runes. Linguists argue that some words used in the inscription are more consistent with 19th century Scandinavian dialects rather than medieval ones. In other words, the language doesn't neatly match the patterns we'd expect from genuine 14th century runes. Additionally, there's the matter of weathering and tool marks. Professional geologists who've examined the stone have had differing opinions. Some have argued that the inscription's weathering patterns match a centuries-old carving. Others, however, have claimed that the stone's inscription shows signs of having been made relatively recently, possibly around the time of its, quote, discovery in the late 19th century. Further complicating things is the social and cultural context of late 19th century rural Minnesota. Many Scandinavian immigrants who settled in the region were proud of their heritage and eager to discover evidence that connected them to the land's distant past. The Kensington Runestone emerged at a time when such an artifact could generate immense local interest, perhaps even tourism and prestige. Some historians have suggested that a hoax could have been born from a desire to create a grand narrative tying Norse history to the American heartland where these Scandinavians had settled. Over the years, many attempts have been made to prove or disprove the stone's authenticity. In the scholarly world, the overwhelming majority opinion tends toward the stone being a 19th century forgery. Mainstream historians cite linguistic anachronisms, the context of its discovery, and the lack of corroborating archaeological evidence as reasons to doubt its authenticity. They argue that in the absence of solid evidence, the simplest explanation, namely that it's a clever hoax, is the best one. Now that I've presented the competing arguments on this one, I'm going to jump in and give my take on this runestone more directly than I do for most entries in this series. There's no evidence for any runestones being raised beyond the 12th century. A runestone being raised in the 14th century would be a significant historical anomaly, as it simply wasn't a practice that had persisted until that point. The Ningen is an Antarctic humanoid cryptid that emerged from Japanese folklore in the mid-2000s. The legend of the Ningen began around 2007, following a post on the Japanese online forum 2chan. The post claimed that crew members of a whale research ship had witnessed a mysterious creature surfacing near their vessel off the Antarctic coast. Initially mistaking it for a submarine, they approached, only for the quote-unquote submarine to vanish into the depths. This account sparked widespread interest and speculation, leading to various alleged sightings and discussions across the internet. Notably, from the beginning, descriptions of the Ningen haven't been very consistent. However, it's generally depicted as a large, aquatic, whale-like creature with human anatomical features, such as a distinct humanoid face. Some accounts describe it with extremely large limbs, arms, and hands, measuring between 20 to 30 meters in length. Less common descriptions portray it as a smaller terrestrial organism with a large head on humanoid legs, wandering Antarctica. The creature is typically described as pale blue, with a large slit-like mouth and either small or large gaping eyes. Both of these creatures are called Ningen, which I suppose makes it the Japanese equivalent of the chupacabra, where two distinct cryptids have the same name and confused lore. Further intrigue arose in 2010 when the Japanese Enoshima Aquarium released a YouTube video showcasing ocean life. Near the video's end, a large figure with small eyes and a broad, smiling mouth appeared on the ocean floor. Also, if you're just listening to my video, you may want to turn your attention to the screen right now, since I've got this clip lined up, and I've got to admit it's kind of weird.
Coincidence? I think not.
Wait, how did that get in there? Let's just keep that between us, okay? Anyway, here's the proper clip. Some claimed this was evidence of the Ningen, but others suggested it was a snaggle-toothed snake eel or an unusual rock formation. Several theories surround the Ningen and what it is, if anything at all. The most likely theory is, of course, that the Ningen is simply an internet urban legend, which took on a life of its own, outside the context of the board where it was posted. Others have speculated that Ningen sightings are known marine animals seen in unusual places, or by people unfamiliar with them but familiar with Ningen lore. So yeah, anyway, that's it. This is part 96 of this series, so check out my channel if you haven't already. Peace out, everyone.